Welcome to the JRPG Canon, the ongoing project to document the first slice of a JRPG, talk about why it works and what's fun about these games that we like so much. If you'd like a better intro as to the purpose and idea behind the series, check out the first 2 episodes on Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, and then come back to this one. Those are kind of my thesis statement, and will inform basically every other episode. I am Sam Allman, and this week is a very special episode of the JRPG Canon brought to you by NIS America. They graciously provided codes for the games we're going to be talking about in honor of the new collection coming out on the 29th. That's right. We are going to be covering the first ever Nippon Ichi software game released in America, Rhapsody, a musical adventure, with a smattering of Rhapsody 2 and 3 thrown in for good measure. Joining me this week is friend of the podcast and co-host of our Blue Reflection season, Velvet of Cerebral Wind. Say hi, Velvet.
Hello.
So, Velvet, how familiar are you with Nippon Ichi games? Since I know you only just played Rhapsody like today, because I asked you to. But what about the rest of their stuff?
I don't necessarily think I've played any other than Rhapsody. I went into Rhapsody 100% blind. I mean, I might have played one and just not known it was NIS, but yeah, I went into Rhapsody completely blind, no knowledge of what I was getting myself into.
Wow.
And I think it's the first and only one I've played.
Wow. That's crazy. I first played an NIS game when I went bargain hunting at the Game Over Video Games in Austin. I was looking for the most RPG bang that I could get for my not a lot of buck, and I found Disgaea 1 and 2 on for $10 a pop, and I was like, perfect, this is great. Not only are they JRPGs, so they're going to be long. Disgaea is famous for having or Disgaea, I don't know which one it is. I say Disgaea all the time. They have a roguelike built into them. You can go into the item world. You have procedural generated. You can play this game as much as you want to. They hilariously have a level cap of 999 so that you can just keep on playing forever. You beat the game at about level 40, so there's just shitloads of in-game content. It was the best $20 I could spend. Then about 2 weeks later, I went into GameStop to buy someone a Christmas gift, and they had a deal on for PS3 games. If you buy 2, you get 3 free. Well, I had 2 friends to buy games for, and there are 3 Disgaea games for the PS3, 3, 4, and then D2, A Brighter Darkness, which is a sequel to Disgaea 1. So in about a span of a week, I went from having 0 NIS games to owning the entire Disgaea series that was available at the time. I tore through Disgaea 1 and 2, loving every minute of them. One of my first huge fights with Summer was she had come over for us to hang out, and I was playing Disgaea, and I was like, in my brain, I was like, look at this cool thing that I'm doing. I'm playing this game and I'm having a lot of fun. What actually happened is I ignored Summer for like 4 hours straight just playing Disgaea. That was rough, but the games are good. So I love the crap out of them. So yeah, I never actually got around to playing 3, 4, or D2, but I plan on going back and finishing them, because when the Switch was small and struggling and there were only like 5 games out, can you even remember when that fucking happened? The Switch definitely exploded like 6 months into it, but those first 6 months, it was like there was slim pickings on Switch games. And
you had Breath of the Wild, and
like prior to Xenoblade, the only JRPGs that were on there were Disgaea 5 and I Am Setsuna. I know this because I bought both of them. And Disgaea 5 was really good, and I really loved it. So I definitely plan on getting around to 3 and 4 fairly soon. I wonder if they'll get Steam ports like 1 and 2 did. Who can say?
Probably.
Yeah, I know 1 and 2 have Steam ports, and then 4, 5, 6, and 7 all launch simultaneously with the Steam. So we would just be missing 3 and 4. But besides that, I've also played some ZHP Unlosing Ranger versus Dark Death Evil Man and some of their Vita games, and their non-Disgaea games are always weird and always very interesting. And I haven't played any of their games to completion besides Disgaea 1 and 2, but I've dabbled in a whole lot of them. I know Matt is super into The Witch and the Hundred Knight and the Labyrinth of Refrain, are two recent games by NIS that he's obsessed with and has been trying to get me to play since they came out. But the other thing that I have played a crapload of is NIS America's massive localization catalog. So NIS America and NIS Europe, which is not the European branch of Nippon Ichi Software, it's the European branch of NIS America. They have localized basically every B tier RPG for Western audiences. And in some cases, they brought games to Europe that wouldn't have come to Europe otherwise. Some of my favorite NISA but not NIS games are Danganronpa, the Trails of series, the Atelier series, the Neptunia series, and if you squint, basically all of the Atlas games, because Atlas doesn't publish games in Europe. NIS picks up Atlas games and publishes them in Europe. And I feel like I can... go ahead.
The Neptunia series is NIS?
It is published by NIS America in the West, so it's localized and published by NIS America.
Then I played Hyperdimension Neptunia out of the NISA catalog.
Nice. And so I think that them releasing Atlas games counts because Atlas released the NIS games before NISA was founded in like 2003. So Rhapsody that we're playing today, it was localized by Atlas, which is ironic because they localize Atlas games into French. So NIS America is definitely one of my favorite localization houses, and this is the third collab that we've done with them. They sponsored Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure, and now they've sponsored an episode on Rhapsody. So without further ado, let's talk about Rhapsody. Okay, so full disclosure, I wanted to cover this game because the new ones were coming out, and I thought that it would be awesome to do. Like me and Bernard were talking like, oh, we should do an episode on Baldur's Gate for Baldur's Gate 3 coming out. We should do an episode on Super Mario RPG because the remake's coming out. And then I was like, oh, we could cover Rhapsody because the new ones are coming out. And I just thought that would be a cool like SEO friendly tie-in to like do on the podcast. But it turns out that this is the first ever NIS game released in America, and it's arguably NIS's first RPG. The Nikawa, the producer and now president of NIS, he says it's their first one, but there was a game on the PlayStation called Angel Blade Neo Tokyo Guardians that is a visual novel strategy game, which is pretty RPG-ish, but it might be related to an anime. It's really hard to tell. That game is very poorly documented in English because it never came out over here. And it shares the name Angel Blade with a famous hentai series. So if I take off the things about the game, like the Neo Tokyo Guardians, and I just look for Angel Blade, I cannot find anything about it. So it is very hard to find anything. But so that one might be their technical first RPG, but this is the one that they say is their first RPG. And even if it's not their first technical RPG, it is definitely 100% the first NIS RPG, which they kind of have their own genre as we find going through the years. You not having played any of them, it's kind of weird. I didn't actually put in my notes to explain this because I figured everybody knew Disgaea and La Pucelle Tactics and Makai Kingdom and Phantom Brave.
Yeah, no.
But
the first I ever heard of Disgaea was when Disgaea 6 got announced in a Nintendo Direct.
Yeah. They're good. So their main thing is they are irreverent and funny, but like actually funny, because being funny in a video game is really hard to do, and somehow they do it, and they've done it over and over again for a very long time. And the games all are technically in the same world, and the characters will show up and do cameos with each other. They're known now for the games being a fairly easy and normal main story, and then have hundreds of hours of really hard post game, because they make the grinding really, really fun with a procedural generated everything. And they're just games that you're supposed to just disappear into for about a month or so. And they're all really, really good. And Rhapsody has so much of that DNA in it. And as I was playing it, I'm like, oh, these people definitely make Disgaea in 5 years.
Yeah, from just the little slice we played, this game is very, very, very fun and very funny.
Mm-hmm. So Rhapsody was designed by Sohei Nikawa, who also produced and wrote the game. According to an interview he did with Game Central, he was in the marketing department at Nipponichi, who at the time were making like Jigsaw games, Hanafuda games, and Mahjong games. And his position as a marketing analyst showed him the writing on the wall that board game video games suck and are quickly on the outs and would not be popular very soon. But that with the PlayStation being out, the RPG was currently king. So he was like, hey, I have an idea for an RPG. Let me make it. And he wrote the design document, the script, scenario, brought it to the president, and got the go ahead to make the game. His plan for the game was to make people happy. So he wanted to tell a feel-good story like you would find in a children's movie. He wanted to keep the story simple and happy with minimal sad or depressing parts. And while he was focusing on this make them happy mantra, he decided to add humor along the way to keep up the smiles and the entertainment value in between the story beats. And it's this humor and the focus on moment-to-moment gags and smiles that the NIS games are super famous for. So as I said earlier, this is the first ever NIS RPG, even if they might have maybe made an RPG before that. Also, from the marketing side, he knew that a small 10-person company like NIS was, they needed something to market, something unique to market their game on. Atelier had just come out like the year before, and it was a huge success. And Gust had also only had 10 people when they released the game. But the originality of that game being you being an alchemist and not an adventurer gave the game a super great elevator pitch. And they needed something similar for their RPG. Some one sentence that would be like, oh my God, that's great, and get everybody on board. So when he was looking back at the feel-good movies that inspired him to make this story, he realized that most of those are musicals. So he was like, Rhapsody should be a musical as well. So he contacted Tenpei Sato to do the music, and he approached them not with, hey, I want you to do this in my game, but with, can this even be done? Can you do a musical RPG? So Sato went off and he wrote the opening musical number for the game, and that sealed the deal in Nikawa's eyes. The game was definitely going to be a musical. In the year since, Nikawa has gone on to become the president of NIS. NIS is now synonymous with RPGs and not Mahjong games. And Sato has returned to do a whole bunch of the music for the NIS games. So this game was definitely the beginning of NIS becoming the giants of the RPG industry. Rhapsody went on to have 2 sequels and a number of remakes and ports, including the Steam port that we'll play today, and a DS port that gave it the battle system from Rhapsody 2, and did a relocalization pass. Everything's basically the same, but the wording's slightly different all through. So I know they basically did what Square does with all of their old Final Fantasies. It's been basically the same script since the PS1, but they do a new pass of it every now and then. The main reason to not play the DS version, and the reason that the DS version wasn't the basis for the new Steam port, is they had to cut a lot of content to fit it on the cart. So the PlayStation version or the Steam version are the way to go. And how does this game actually play? Let's find out after we listen to some of this kick-ass music.
You're out there and I'm waiting for you. Cornet is my name and I'm a puppeteer too. With my puppet friends there's nothing that we can't do. They are there to help me make my dreams come true.
So when you launch the game, you and choose new game, you get to choose your difficulty. The difficulty of the game is not actually changed any. It is just how much experience points you get. So don't play it on easy. The game is already way too easy and almost trivial, and it will be even more so if you play it on easy. A lot of people recommend putting it on hard because then you actually have to like pay attention, and because you'll be underleveled for everything. But
I played it on easy.
What level are you?
I think I'm like 17 or 18.
Yeah, I'm level 10 and I'm still one-shotting all the bosses, so you'll probably be one-shotting the bosses for a long time.
I got holy on one of my characters, so I've just been steamrolling literally everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as a real quick aside, first of all, when I loaded the game up the first time, I was expecting an adventure with music in it, not a musical with adventure in it.
Mm-hmm.
I read the title with the completely wrong inflection.
Yep.
It's not Rhapsody, a musical adventure. It's Rhapsody, a musical adventure.
Also on the, at least on the Steam version, when you start a new game, you can choose if you want Japanese songs or English songs.
You could do that in the PS1 version too.
Cool. I think the Steam version of the first game is emulating the PS1 version. There's so much about it that it looks like that's exactly what's happening. All of the things that reference modern controllers are like high def and pasted on top of it, and not pixel art like everything else.
Another thing I wanted to bring up very quickly is if you leave the game idle on the title screen before selecting a new game, it eventually plays a little mini cutscene where it plays a musical number. And I found it funny because I was setting everything up to play it on my TV from bed rather than playing it at my computer. And as I'm wandering around setting things up, the first line of the song is, "I know you're out there and I'm waiting for you."
Wonderful. So yeah, you start a new game and you're introduced to the wonderful sprite work of this game.
It's gorgeous.
You see a girl running in the darkness, and then some ominous eyes appear out of the darkness. So she turns and runs the other way. But as she's running, a huge creature blocks her path, and so she falls to her knees, and then she's saved by a dashing prince. The girl thinks to herself, "It's him. It's the man I've been dreaming about. He's finally real, and I'm not dreaming anymore." Smash cut to her bedroom. Of course, she's still dreaming this time. We awaken in our room and being awoken by our fairy friend. There's a NPC later that will tell you that our fairy friend is a puppet that can speak to non-puppeteers, which is cool and interesting, but I didn't find that out by playing. So we are Cornet, a teenage girl, and our fairy friend is Kururu, and Kururu has a mouth on her. She is snarky as a motherfucker. Our grandpa needs us to do something, so we run downstairs. He found a doll in their mailbox, which seems weird until you find out through osmosis that he's a doll maker by trade. So somebody sent him this doll, not just I opened up the mailbox and a doll was in it randomly. We go to inspect the doll and we can hear it talking to us. Apparently word has gotten around in the doll world that Cornet can speak to dolls, and this doll, Shart, Yes. Shart wants to travel with us so that she can find her missing sister.
I'm glad I'm not the only one giggling like a child at her being named Shart. Especially when she's the one that learns holy.
Mm-hmm.
So you're walking around with literal holy shit.
Yes. We play our magical trumpet that is never brought up again in dialogue. It's just a thing that Cornet can do. And Shart joins our party. Grandpa asks us to go get some red inotium from the forest. Inotium is a crystal found in this world that is used for various magical things as well as currency. And then the game lets us go. We have full control of our character and we can go out and interact with the world. There are a ton of NPCs around this town for how small it is, and most of them have interesting things to say. I believe it was Yuji Horii when talking about Dragon Quest. He said that if a NPC in one town talks about an NPC in another town, that's art or something. I don't remember the exact quote. Maddie does, but they're not here. And this game does that so well. There are so many different like rumors and gossips going around in like the NPCs' lives. Like there's a boy who lost his dog, and you can find his parents talking about it and things like that. It's pretty cool.
The gossip and stuff actually also progresses. Like details about it change as you complete events in the story. Like there's one character that's like, "Oh, I'm saving up Inotium to move to this other town." And you can keep talking to her throughout the game, and eventually she's like, "I finally saved up enough money. I'm gonna move."
Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool. Before we leave, our grandfather tells us to be sure to equip our accessories, so we look in our menu to do just that. Equipment in this game is just accessories. You don't have swords, shields, armors, those sorts of things, and everyone can equip, I believe it's 3. I don't have it in my notes or in front of me. And you start the game with 2 of them. You can either pile them on Cornet or give some to Shart 2 and spread the love. They're really expensive, so these 2 are the only ones I got during our playthrough this week because I never made enough money to get any more. You probably did because you're playing on easy. Yeah,
I bought a ton of them. Yeah. There are three accessory slots.
Nice. So also in the menu, you can tell that you have a party of 4. You have Cornet and 3 others, and then a reserve of 3. What do you fill all these slots with? More dolls, of course. Not only that, but sometimes when you defeat a monster, it will want to join your party. So this is a Pokemon's. We make our way through the edge of town and we're brought to the world map. The world map in this game is not a walkable overworld like we've seen for Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy and the like, but it's more of paper map style with different dots on the map that we can go to, and we select the only one that we have available to us at the time, the Wonder Woods, so we can head off to see it. When we arrive, Cornet is wistfully sighing, missing the man from her dreams, and Karuru teases her for it. But then some toads attack, and toads are Cornet's least favorite thing, so we have to have our first battle.
There's an NPC you can talk to right outside of her house that's like, I can't find any toads. I was going to give you one. Just teasing her out the starting gate.
Mm-hmm. So battles in this game are kind of trails adjacent or lunar adjacent, depending on your interpretation. So you have random battles, but those battles take place on a small, bespoke tactical RPG board. The board is really, really small in this game, like way smaller than it is in either lunar or trails. But each turn you can move, attack, use a special move, use an item, or end your turn. Cornet's special moves are horn moves. The only one we have currently is a buff for our nearby dolls. Using horn moves over and over will build up a gauge in the top right of the screen marked with musical notes. Filling up this gauge will give you 1 Concha point, and you can stockpile up to 5 of those. And you can use those points to unleash devastating summon attacks. And these points last in between battles, so you can grind a bunch of small guys, build up your meter, and then use them on the bosses. And all of your summons are desserts. Like you have like Conpeto, star candy. You have a flan. You have a pancake. I know is one of them. But you just summon giant sweets that land on your enemies and deal shit tons of damage, and it's wonderful. It's weird, but it's wonderful.
I never expected in a JRPG to drop a massive mound of pancakes on something and see that it dealt 385 damage.
It's wonderful.
Also, all the healing items are sweets too, so this game has an obsession with sweet things and desserts.
Yes, it is very cute. Shart has magic for their special moves, and they work about as you'd expect. After we destroy the frogs, Cornet and Karuru stop to have a picnic, and Karuru asks Cornet to sing her favorite song. And boy, does she. It is a full-ass Disney princess musical number, fully voiced in either English or Japanese, whichever one you want. The English dub is done by like professional Broadway singers, which I thought was crazy and awesome.
That explains why it's so good for a 90s PS1 game.
Yeah. It rules. This track is one called Someday, and it is a very good I Want song. Sprite wise, she's just standing there singing, swaying back and forth, but supposedly the musical numbers get even more elaborate as the game goes on.
Yeah, the one that plays when you just let it idle on the title screen has Cornet and Karuru running around the room and beating each other with fans when they annoy each other.
Beautiful. As we trek forward, we fight some random battles, and we'll likely level up. When you level up, you fully heal your HP and SP, which is a controversial mechanic. I love it in every game that does it, and I know it doesn't make any damn sense, but Maddie hates it because it doesn't make any sense and it can trivialize some games. But this game was already trivial, so I don't mind.
Yeah, a little bit.
So after we make our way to the end of the forest, we dig around and find some red inotium, but there's barely any here, and there's usually a lot more. It's almost as if someone has taken it. And sure enough, here comes someone, and they have taken all the inotium and demand us to give them ours. This someone is Meow, Myao, reminiscent of like Daimyo, and she has a bunch of anthropomorphic cat cronies with her. She says that all the inotium in the world belongs to Marjorie, and we should give it up. We say no, and we have our end of chapter boss. On the PS1 version, chapters aren't signposted in this game, but they only say what chapter you're in on the save screen. But on the DS game, it will say prologue, blah blah blah, chapter 1, blah 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 when it's over. And so we fight our boss. And by boss, I mean, it's just a bunch of these cats that don't even hit as hard as the basic slimes. So we kind of wipe the floor with them in as many turns as it takes, like one turn per cat. And it goes by pretty easy. Meow is like, oh shit, you're actually strong. Let me summon my dragon then. And she summons a huge ass dragon. Karuru is like, never mind. Here, you can have the inotium. And Cornet is like, bruh. Karuru is like, it's dangerous. If you fight a dragon at your current level, it's game over. And if you get a game over, you have to come back and watch this whole scene again because this game is funny. Meow isn't amused, and she sicks the dragon on us, but we're saved just in time by the prince from our dreams? ? He kills the dragon and chases off Meow, and he comes to talk to Cornet, but she is speechless. The prince introduces himself as Prince Ferdinand, but he doesn't have time to stick around because he's not supposed to be out of the castle and they're looking for him. So he says farewell and he's off. Cornet remains speechless as the chapter closes. The next day, Cornet is dejected because she beefed her one chance with the prince of her dreams. And Karuru is like, we should go to the castle town, Mother Green, and try and get some intel on him. And maybe when we meet him again, we'll have like a leg up on the competition and can talk to him. So we head out and we notice that all the NPCs in our town have new dialogue, as Vivi was talking about earlier. The entire playthrough this week, all of the NPC dialogues update. The NPC subplots we talked about will update as they go along. It's really great, and I love when games do that. When we get to Mother Green, it is even bigger than Orange was, and it has even more stuff to do, including finding our second party member, Kid, who is one of 3 egg-shaped doll brothers. He wants to join us to find his brothers. We wander around and do some pixel hunting. I don't remember if pixel hunting has come up on the JRPG canon before, but basically it's a thing that RPGs do. Oftentimes they do it poorly, where the game doesn't give you direction besides go to this town. And then when you're in the town, you just wander around and talk to people and click on everything you can until you stumble upon the next scene. I don't mind it in this game because this game is funny and all the NPC dialogue is well written, and there's a bunch of secrets, and you can find healing items in basically everybody's trash can. And even without pixel hunting, I probably would have talked to everybody anyways. And we eventually find the pixel we're looking for in the bar, where an NPC tells us that the prince likes to eat bobo fish, which are caught in the river out in Wonderwoods. Kururu and Cornet decide to catch some fish and cook the prince's favorite meal as a way to win his heart. But as we head outside, we're accosted by Cornet's quote-unquote friend Etoile. She is a rich bitch, and she's mean in every way and has no redeeming qualities. We sit and let her belittle us for a hot minute, and then we head off to Wonderwoods. Except now, before we go to Wonderwoods, we see that we have new places to go. We can go to a bridge where we learn that we need a permit to cross the bridge to go to White Snow. And there's also an ancient burial ground where we can grind on harder monsters and get some very much not worth it treasure in a very much way too large optional dungeon.
I got lost.
Yeah, it's real easy to get lost.
I had to use the teleport stone I bought at one of the shops.
That would have been helpful for me. I did not have one, and so I just had to dungeoneer my way out. Speaking of optional dungeons, there's one in the forest that we could have done earlier, and I did do it earlier, but if you do it now instead, we get our third puppet. One of Kid's brothers, Tell, is in the optional forest dungeon, and he joins our party. This is incredibly missable because you probably found this earlier, and you probably got all of the chests, so there would be no reason to go back. This game has a lot of missable things. Did you know that you have a letter in your mailbox every day? And
yes.
And you have to have read all of those to get one of the 16 party members, which is super missable 16? Because yeah, there's 16 total dolls. So yeah, there's a lot of missable stuff in this game. I normally hate missables, but this game is only 10 hours long, according to how long to beat. I haven't beaten it yet, so I can't say for certain. But like,
you could play it like 3 times in the amount of time it takes to play one game.
Yeah, the long play on World of Long Plays is 6 hours and 50 minutes. So replaying this game a bunch wouldn't be so bad. And back in 2000, I definitely was of the thing where if somebody was like, oh, did you find Kid's brother? He's in that dungeon. I would have been like, oh shit, no, I didn't. And I would go back and get it. And then if I couldn't get it, I would start it over again and do it. Like, this replay value was actually a thing back in the day, which definitely is not the case in most JRPGs. But this one, I don't hate it so much. When we get to the river, we fight the Bobo fish and we take their flesh. But who loves fish more than cats? No one. That's who. Meow's cat folks show back up, and this time you fight like 8 of them at once, but it's not any harder than it was before.
By this point in time, Shart had Holy, so I just powered her up with Cornet, walked her over, cast Holy, and they all ascended to heaven at the same time. Yeah.
The hardest / most interesting part of this fight is that for the first time, the battle area is not a square. There's a river in the way, and so you have to walk around, navigate around the dock and stuff. And so if you're unlucky and Kid and Tell are on the dock and not on the grass, they have to walk all the way around to be in range. But at that point, Shart has probably already killed them all with Holy.
Yeah.
We take the fish back home, and Cornet cooks it into orange fish, which is our town's local specialty, and it's the prince's favorite meal. Cornet wonders how they'll get it to the prince, because if you explored the castle earlier, he has a whole bunch of potential suitors that are trying to get with him and are mucking up the place, and you can't really get around there. And Karuru has an idea. She has a shortcut through the cemetery. So now we have another quote unquote dungeon that's literally a hallway, and the only divergence is only half a screen wide, and it has a treasure chest in it. So it's basically just a hallway to the end. On the final screen, there's a switch that's kind of stuck, so Cornette has to really stomp on it. But as she does, Karuru remembers to warn her that when you press the button, a monster pops out. So we have a boss fight. This one is much harder than the rest of the ones, but is still not super hard. Everyone died in 2 hits instead of 1. Our glass cannon shart deals holy damage, and these are zombies, so they still die really easy.
That scene played out differently for me then.
How did it play out for you?
Kadudu just kind of flew up to the switch and was like, hey, look at this, watch this. Pressed the button.
I was going off of memory at that point, so maybe it wasn't stuck.
Yeah, Kadudu just flew up, pressed the button, and was like, oh, I forgot to mention, when I press this, down fall the monsters. That happens.
Yeah.
Good luck.
So yeah, we defeat the zombies, and we step through the door, and it is pitch black and smells horrible. Karuru is like, oh, this makes sense based on where we are. And Cornette is like, well, where are we? And she opens the door, and we stumble out of a toilet in the castle bathroom. We were in one of the sewage drains for the castle bathroom, which is gross. But thankfully, the path we took is for the out of order stall, so it's not disgusting. It hasn't been used in a very long time, and this is just a good shortcut into the castle. All of our racket is heard from outside the room, where Minister Galonzo, the obviously evil-looking counselor to the king, comes in. Karuru pretends that we're his secret admirer trying to get close to him, so he tries to make a pass at Cornette, and Cornette decks him with the fish dish right in his face in glorious sprite art. And I love it so much.
It's so good.
He calls in his pets, which are 3 zombies, and we have another boss fight that is also harder than normal, which is to say not hard at all. After the fight, he says that we're assassins, and he threatens to call the guards and kill us and all of that sort of shit. So we hightail it out of there and head back to Orange. And that's the end of chapter 1, and is a pretty good vertical slice of this game. This game is about going to a new location on the map, exploring it, talking to a shitload of NPCs, hearing beautiful music. I was going to try and play to the second song, but the next song is like an hour from now, and I didn't feel like it would add a lot to it. It's like the climax of chapter 2. This was the end of chapter 1, so we would have had to play a lot more to get to the next song, but at least there was one this time. And so you get to listen to songs, watch musical numbers, talk to a lot of NPCs, fight some things, explore a lot of dungeons. There a surprising number of optional dungeons. The fact that there are 2 optional dungeons and we're only like 1/10 of the way through the game is insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's listen to some music, then we'll talk about our conclusions and wrap up this episode. What a wonderful game.
It is so wonderful. Something I want to bring up real quick. I did play a little bit past there, and if you talk to the citizens in Orange after that whole situation, most of them, unless you don't want me to spoil it.
Oh no, it's fine. I played a little more too. They all say that the minister was almost assassinated. There was an assassin in there, and you better watch out. Assassins could be anywhere. You never even know who you're talking to, they say to Cornette, the assassin.
But my favorite one is one of them that's like, oh man, some assassins went after Minister Galonzo. Too bad they didn't finish him off.
Yeah,
like, we live in a village of war criminals.
Yeah, this game has great self-referential humor. At the store, there was something that kind of looked like a PS1 disc, and I click on it, and it's like, oh, it's a copy of Tail Concerto, and I'm like, of course it is. It doesn't take itself seriously at all, but like in a good way, not in like a unfortunate way. Like Cosmic Star Heroine doesn't take itself seriously so much that it hurts the game. This one is just, it's trying to tell you a fun, happy story, and it's going to do silly stuff along the way.
Yeah.
The battle system is also wonderful. I really liked it. It's really easy, and it's definitely lunar light and Trails light, but I've always liked that style of battle, because you have to, by nature of it, do more per battle besides just spam the attack button. Right. But you can kind of just spam the attack button in this game and it'll be okay.
One other feature that is able to be done in the game that I'm surprised you didn't bring up is that in both Orange Village and Mother Green, there's a spot in the center of town where there's a sign with a musical note on it. And if you interact with that, you can play your horn in the town square and get tips from people.
Oh, yeah. I did that once, and then I just forgot it was a thing. But yeah,
like you get 10, really cool. You get like 10 or 15 Enotium every time you play in Orange, and like 28 or something every time you play in Mother Green.
That's cute. Yeah, so I also really love how alive the world feels. All the NPCs feel real. Like they have their subplots going on. That like we already talked about the boy who lost his dog and was really depressed about it, and then the dog came home and he was happy again. There's a mom and son in the shopping area that always miss each other. Like she's outside and he's inside the first day, and the second day she's inside and he's outside, and they still can't ever find each other, which is hilarious. Every tiny bit of writing in this game is wonderful, and it made it so much that I didn't notice that the RPG stuff is way too easy, because the game was fun and it was making me have a good time, and that's all it was trying to do, was make me have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there anything else that stood out to you as something to highlight from this section?
The soundtrack, not even just the musical songs, but like the soundtrack of the game overall is really pretty.
Mm-hmm. And feels like the underscore to a musical.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It doesn't feel like RPG music. It feels like Disney music.
And there's like the scene where Cornette is cooking the orange fish to take to the prince. She's like doing twirls and dancing around in the kitchen while she's doing it.
And she's humming to herself, and she's
humming to herself, and it's adorable.
Yeah. It's...
I definitely marked in my notes about that. Just the sprite work in general is just like
top notch.
Throwing the fish in Galonzo's face was something that stuck out to me, because like it could have just been, you know, a couple text boxes like "Thwap, Cornette throws the fish in Minister Galonzo's face." No. She actually takes the fish and plants it firmly in his face, and then Kururu hits him from behind with a fan.
I love it so much.
The Japanese fan gag is something I didn't really appreciate until I started watching older anime and playing older Japanese games.
But yeah, the sprite work is great. The backgrounds have like a storybook painterly quality. It is a delight to look at, a delight to listen to, a delight to read, and a delight to play. It is just a good time. And Nikawa succeeded at his goal of keeping a smile on my face the entire time I was playing it.
Absolutely.
I loved it. And on the 29th, you get to play 2 more of them. So the sequels that are coming out, I haven't beaten the first game yet, so I didn't get terribly far into the game. I just poked around to see what was different. If you know anything about the second game, which of course you don't, it's not out in English yet, but I was spoiled pretty hard on the end of this game. Not this game, you can already tell what the ending of it is going to be. This is a Disney movie, for fuck's sake. But the sequel, just in plot and setting, spoils this first game. But
I do know one big spoiler about this game in particular, and it's that so every party member joins at level 1. When you get them to a certain level or have them do a certain thing, and an NPC in the game tells you this too, they've fulfilled their purpose and ascend to heaven.
Wonderful.
So, like, I actually got spoiled that Shart has a sister that wasn't brought up. Her name is Tara, but apparently if you save both of them and get them to level 30, that's the end of their story.
Dang. That's interesting. So the sequels have more traditional turn-based battles, just like the DS remake. And then Rhapsody 3 has 3D graphics, which the rest of the games don't. And Rhapsody 3 also is the first game to have the Nipponichi art style. Like all of the things from Rhapsody look like La Pucelle, look like Disgaea, look like Witch in the 100 Night. They look like an NIS game. And it looks really adorable. So the new versions of 2 and 3 are closer to remakes than this game was. This game seems to be emulating the PS1 version of the game with the modern controller buttons just laid on top of him. But the new games have like a more modern UI, a higher render resolution, and it makes them look lovely as shit. Yeah, go in and get Rhapsody 2 and 3 next week when they come out. Get Rhapsody 1 and play it over the next week so that you'll be ready for 2 and 3. It will not take you very long. Shout out again to NIS America for providing the codes for my Steam copies of this game and the sequels. I am super excited, and you should be too. These games are wonderful. All 3 of them are really short, so you could bust one out a weekend easily and just have 3 of the best weekends of your life back to back. But yeah, that'll do it for this episode. If you'd like to sponsor a JRPG Canon episode yourself, you can do so on the web at www.rpgbook.club, where only $20 will let you tell us what to play. It should be an RPG, but the definition of RPG and how canon they should be is up to you. But I should at least be able to spin it as an entry in the JRPG Canon. Sorry, Velvet, but SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom would not count as a JRPG Canon episode, although we did do it for a commissioned shortcast once. Besides commissioning an episode, you can also donate monthly to join one of our 3 tiers. The Gadabout tiers for everyone who pays $1 or more a month. This will get you access to our Book Club no Kuseki and the Tales of Podcastia episodes a month before everyone else. It also lets you vote on our polls whenever they go live. The Warrior tier is for everyone who pays $5 or more a month, and they also get their name shouted out at the end of every episode, like this. Shouts to Frost Terror, Dragon Slayer 19, Cerebral Wind, Florus, Kaldron, Freddie Rodriguez, Aaron524, Jfro Prime, and Doho. And then finally, we have the Luminary tier, which is for everyone who loves us so much that they pay us $20 or more a month, and they also get a 1-sentence shout out to make me say whatever they want. Shout outs to El Tantavi, who wants you to check out critical-distance.com, an aggregator for games criticism and journalism. Shout outs to William Taylor, who recommends checking out rpgamer.com, a video game review site for people like us by people like us. Shout outs to Vimk, who wants you to play Legend of Legaia. It's that PS1 RPG that you forgot about or confused it with Legend of Dragoon. And then also shouts to Carr, who's a dentist, so he's not shouting out a URL, but rather your own mouth. And he says to brush your teeth twice a day, most importantly, the time right before you go to bed. For the JRPG Canon, I have been Sam Allman.
And I'm Velvet Cerebin.
Go play some games.